Professor Christina Frasier to talk a little bit about using library paid-for materials. This was something that they piloted in an earlier grant year in a smaller number of courses, and it's grown. And they are now using this in all of the sections of writing composition. And it's another amazing example of a librarian-faculty partnership. So I'll turn it over to you, Christina.
Okay. Hello, my name is Christina Frasier. First, let me tell you a little bit about my department. It's not an official department. I teach freshman composition 1 and freshman composition 2. And we are part of the writing program, which is separate from the English department. And what it is all the students who come into UTSA who have not tested out via AP or any of the other ways you can get out of taking freshman composition, like taking it at another college, that sort of thing. They have to take our course. So it's required, it's core, it's something that people are not super excited to take. So anything that we can do to get students engaged and on board with our message is important, because writing is time consuming and they would generally prefer to be doing other things. One of the largest barriers, I think, in our sort of the way we teach and keeping us from getting our message was the 1013, that would be the first half of writing composition, was the textbook. So I was out a few years ago because I had my daughter. And when I came back, this was our textbook. It's over 4 pounds. It is a custom edition by Pearson. And I don't know if any of you have any sort of, if you've ever used custom editions, but this is cobbled together from like 7 different textbooks, and it contains a bunch of different readings, like articles and stuff that people in our faculty had liked from a previous textbook. So it's basically a mess, and the publishers didn't do things like change any of the typos when we brought them up to them, and so our students were paying for something that couldn't be sold again over Amazon, because we were the only people using it, and it was just sort of a ridiculous situation to be in. So I got myself voted on to the the textbook committee, because I said this can't stand. This isn't working out for the students. It's not working out for the faculty. We need to find something new. So in 2016, I applied for and won the individual grant, $1,000 one. And I used one of the SUNY textbooks that Dean Hendricks talked about earlier for a class, but there were some problems with it. It focused specifically on social sciences, which would not be sort of general to all of our 1013 students. And also 1013 is an expository class, expository writing, not argumentational writing, and this book had a little bit of both. But despite that, the book was really good in a lot of ways, and I actually still use parts of it in both of my classes. It just wasn't really good. And one of the reasons why we haven't been able to use like an OpenStax or something like that is because they don't do composition textbooks. I don't know if you guys know this, but writing curricula across the country are very different from state to state. What people think is important differs from state to state. Some colleges are still having students write about literature their freshman year, some aren't. It's not like, it's not as standardized across the country. So there are no sort of big textbooks that we could sort of grab and go, like an OpenStax, which was kind of a bummer. But so what we wound up doing is I wound up applying the next year with two of my colleagues for the group grant, and we won it. And we developed basically reading lists. We do still have a textbook. It's slim. It's way under $100, and that kind of gives some nuts and bolts about writing. But as far as the articles and everything, most of those could be found on the library databases. So what we did is we collected them all together. And to give you an idea of other things that we were up against, and you can grab my handout on the way out if you want. It's got my email address if you want to contact me. There were 25% of the students who did not receive financial aid until after the 4th week of class, and sometimes even then they didn't buy the textbooks. And then 33% of my students did not purchase at least one of their textbooks because of the price. So I noticed that I've been full-time here since 2003. I noticed that over time, fewer and fewer students were buying textbooks, and I was waiting for them to get the money to do it, so I was kind of like putting off some of my assignments longer and longer, and it just wasn't working out. So I needed something from day one that we could start working on, or otherwise I was going to wait until after midterm to start teaching. It just wasn't working out. So we knew that had to go, and we started to work on compiling the online text that's through the LiveGuide system through the UTSA Library website. So let me go ahead and show you what it looks like. Yeah, okay, so here it is. This is what it looks like, and the communications team at the library made us this, like, I love it, this cover for the book. And then at the bottom here, it talks about sort of the boilerplate grant information about how research has shown that open and low-cost learning materials available on day one help improve student engagement. And I found that although this needs work overall, that has started to be the case. Let me sort of walk you through a section of the book. Let's see, one that is pretty well developed is digital dualism, augmented reality, and AI. So here are some of the sources that we've put together. Like, we have little icons showing that this is from the internet overall. These are through the UTSA database, or one of them. And if you log in once to your UTSA account, the proxy is embedded, so they don't have to keep logging in every time, which is nice. And we also want to work on, after we finalize what we're going to do for the next semester, this summer, we're going to publish it as a PDF and have it available for students just to use as a PDF, so they don't have to mess with this if they don't have any connectivity or something. We have the articles separated out from multimedia. We've got videos, we've got podcasts. We even have an ebook for the political correctness section, podcasts, articles. And overall, the use of this has been pretty smooth. My department is pretty happy with it. For those people who've chosen to adopt it, that would be about, we have about 40-ish, depending on student enrollment, we have about 40-ish teachers. We're not all non-tenure track. But there are about 30 people and like at least 20 people who are really hardcore into this. And so if you start thinking about the savings that way, the savings that Darren, Pam, and I got just from using this for the sections we taught of 1013 was over $15,000. But when you start working in all of the other faculty in my department, and we have an ongoing sort of, persuasion campaign to get all the other people on board. I think we're looking at over hundreds of thousands of dollars for just 1013. I found out, it was kind of gratifying, some of the faculty in my department are also using this for 1023 for their students. And although I, absolutely think that students should be researching on their own and learning that, this is definitely also good for new faculty who are coming in, or even TAs who are forced to come from the English department and teach freshman composition in our department. Because it gives them at least something to sort of, be able to assign from. So that's worked out. Let's see. Oh yeah, $100,000. In a survey we conducted at the end of last semester, they said most of the faculty say that they use the book about once a week or so. So that's pretty thorough usage. Some things that they want to see us do to develop the anthology more is to have like critical thinking questions and sort of like head notes, I guess you could say, for the articles, stuff that helps more synthesis for the students so they can start to sort of put it all together better. So that's one of the things that we'll be working on this summer. We also want to clean up some of this. If you look at the topics on the side, some of them are very, very targeted, like high strength steel and natural disasters. So that's a little bit more focused than maybe we necessarily need. But that doesn't mean that we'll get rid of the articles. We're going to try to make this a little bit, like nobody complained about navigating, but we do want to separate these categories out into, you know, like here are STEM topics, here are more humanities topics, so that they're sort of more navigable for students according to their majors, that type of thing. But it's a work in progress. It's been great. I've worked with Deanne and Tara on this, and I think it's only going to get better. If we can find an open source textbook that talks about the nuts and bolts of writing, I think that'll be even better. Because I think that, again, because my class is not like enormously popular to take, and it's core, it's required. Anything we can do to ensure student success and to get people on board from day one is absolutely incredibly important. So we're just trying to do it. All right, that's what I got. Thank you.